Okay, today we are going to talk about InDesign and what InDesign can create and what it is properly used for. You want to use InDesign as a layout program as it was designed. Anything with multiple pages, booklets, brochures, layout such as business cards, stationery. We're not designing objects and graphics in InDesign. We're laying out and designing our type within InDesign. So let's start off. First thing you want to do whenever you're working in InDesign is have a root folder. This is where all your items are going to kind of live and stay. Very similar to web design, InDesign is linking to these objects. So if you delete one or move one, you will have the low resolution of that image the last time it was brought in. So once something goes into the root folder, keep it in the root folder. In our root folder here, I have all my assets, and you can notice that I have all different kinds of files, and this is another wonderful thing about InDesign is that you can bring in Illustrator files, Photoshop, Microsoft Word documents, JPEGs, GIFs, PNGs, PSDs. It's really versatile with all the Adobe file formats as well as universal file formats. So in here you can see that I have book, camera, TIFFs, EPSs, a lot of these to show examples of what they do today when we bring these in. All right, let's hop to it. When you open up InDesign, very similar layout as we've seen with all the Adobe products. And we have our toolbar on the left, which I always make into a double-sided toolbar, and all my palettes on the right side. I always go up and I reset my typography palette format just because that's what I'm used to seeing. And you can see here then I could arrow out and we get a little bit more of our objects and palette details. Now a couple ones you're definitely going to be using is your swatches. So we have our swatches over here on the right. You're going to be using your pages. So that's new. And I'm going to branch that off so you can actually see what pages looks like. Think about PowerPoint and how when you're making a PowerPoint presentation, you can go through and have all these multiple pages. That's exactly what we're doing here. And same as PowerPoint, there's a master sheet that you can create a look and feel for consistency throughout all your pages. We'll be talking about that in a second. Another one that we're going to be using besides our swatches, pages, and then our character palette, which is right down here at the bottom. And the character palette's going to be very consistent with the other programs with leading and kerning and font choice, etc. Over here is our toolbar on the right. And again, I'm just going to make that double column because that's how I like to view it. And that's going to look very similar, but there's a couple small changes we'll be discussing. Since we're making an accordion book, and at the end it's going to be 5 pages, could be more, I'm giving you a 5-page template layout. This is showing your master page, page 0, page 1, page 2, page 3, 4, and then 5. Nothing will go on the back sheet, and nothing will go on the last sheet. It's a blank sheet, but it is needed to put the book together, so I included it in this template. What we're creating today is a simplified version of what I'm showing here, which is this is page 0, page 1, page 2, 3, 4, and then 5 on the back. And last page is blank because that's for the back side. All right, so let's hop to it. Let's go over to our templates, and I'm going to start off with my master page. So this master page will affect every single page in my document. So as you can see here, it says master page on every page. So if you have your pages palette open, this is an easy way to hop through all your pages and navigate easily. Now, if you look here in your pages, which you can make larger, which I like to do to see all my pages, you can also go up to the little arrow in the upper right corner, and you can do panel options, and here you can make this actually extra large if you like to see exactly what's on them. Here you could show vertically or horizontally, but I like to make it larger. See how nice and big that is? You can actually almost read the text on it. So up here at the top where it says A master, this is your master sheet, and it's formatted like a double page spread, 2 pages side by side, which we're not using for this project, but you can see where that would come into play. So by double clicking on that A master, you can see here that whatever I do on this page, for instance, if I make a circle and give it a circle black fill, it does it to all 5 of our pages. So this master page is important for that reason. Okay, I want to first of all delete the word master page. And if you wanted to have a solid background color or a image on every single page, like I have this watercolor texture, this is where you can apply it. Now, do you have to? No, you could individually put it on each page, but this is a lot more simplified. So let me go over here to our tools palette, and one of the major tools that you're going to use is this rectangle frame tool. It's a rectangle with an X through it. This is how you're going to put every picture in. So I can't stress how this is going to definitely get some use. So whatever size I make this rectangle is the size that the image will be. So I'm going to make a nice large rectangle with my rectangle frame tool. I just call it a picture box. So you'll hear me say picture box a lot. You can see that it's empty. After I'm done making my rectangle for my picture box, I'm going to go to File, Place, and place in this image. And it should be in your Assets folder, and place that in. Now you can see that it wasn't exactly big enough of how they placed it in. So what I'm going to do is go up to my options bar for this. You can see there's all this junk. And if you read through it, it kind of makes sense. Starting on the left, the X and Y axis of where this image is, how large my picture frame is, what percentage it's at, and so on and so forth. If we go all the way over here, this is how we can fit the image proportionally into this box. So I always play around with these two. This is fill frame proportionally, and then also fill content proportionally. And I'm going to do fill frame, which stretches it out to be the size of that page. Now you can see, if I scroll down through here, double click on any of these, that watercolor texture has been applied to every page. And you could add whatever you wanted to this. This is also how you do page numbers and so on and so forth. So now that we did that, let's go to our page 1 here and page 0 on the template, and I'm going to delete that page 0 because we don't need that. There is nothing on this side, so only on this side we have to have some artwork. I'm going to make another picture box, and I'm going to file, place in one of my watercolor textures. So I'm going to come over and find one of my textures, and let's do this one. Place that in, and then I'm going to hit that same fill frame proportionally. I'm going to rotate it with my black arrow. So we still have our selection tool in the upper left-hand corner, and this is how you're going to move things, rotate things, very similar to Illustrator. So you can just move things around a little bit of how you want to place it. Now, one thing that kind of bugs me about InDesign is how it has so many margins. Now, I definitely want my rule down the center with that rule showing me of where my page, and we don't want any text in that fold and where we're going to fold the accordion book. Let's just make that a little bigger there. So the picture frame box is, everything fills out. But it also has our margin around the side, which is helpful when we're laying out so items are not too close to the edge that we have to worry about text printing issues. But you can come over here to your toolbar and you can click the preview button or the normal mode, this is kind of your work zone, and you can see your margins, your guides, etc. And then the preview mode kind of breaks it down to what it really looks like. Up to you which one you want to work in, but definitely flip back and forth a little bit so you don't just work in this. You are aware of your guides and rules. All right, I'm going to put one more texture, so I'm going to make another picture box down below. And I'm going to file place in another image, a watercolor. And put that like that. All right, so we have our two watercolor images there. Let's move on to page 1, where we're going to start building some text and bring in some different files. So these two files that I brought in are PNGs. So I know they're PNGs, one, because I saved them, but two, notice how there's not a white box around these items. It is transparent. So pings are one way to have an object have a transparent background. Some file formats will allow that, some won't. Another important place to kind of know where everything is go to your links. So if we go to Window Links, this is showing all the linked images in this document. So you can see here that I have these two PNGs and my watercolor paper.tiff. So this is where you can make sure that everything is linked. If you would see this exclamation mark, that means problem, it's missing, or it's updated. This also shows all the information about it. It shows here what the DPI is. I scanned in that watercolor paper at 600. So right now it's at 400 PPI. Remember, we want to stay at 300, which is our print PPI. And it shows my size, and same here. So this is 429 PPI. This is 285, so that's close. I wouldn't want to scale that up any larger. So I always keep my links out too. I'm going to throw that over there so we can watch that. All right, down to page 1 now. This is where I'm going to have my intro, my cover. Of course, your layout could be as whatever you want it to be. All right, I made a document in Illustrator. It's an AI. So I'm going to, 1, delete this text, and 2, I'm going to make a rectangle like so within my picture box, and I'm going to place in my AI document. So what this goes to show is that you can use AI documents, PNGs, that you're bringing in and laying out. Parisian. So it's just some fun text. And again, I'm going to make that a little bit larger. There we go. And the reason I did not do this in InDesign is because it's an illustration. You know, it took a little fine tuning, and I wanted to have more control over it. So it's more of an image than text, or it's text used as image. Now what I want to do is do a text box. So above this, I'm going to add more text. So I'm going to go to my type tool. The one thing about InDesign that you have to know with the type tool is you can't just click and type, like we did in Photoshop and Illustrator. You have to make a text box. So we make picture boxes and text boxes. So here I'm just going to make a text box the size that I want. I'm going to flip back over to preview mode so I can see that. How to look like a. Here I can highlight my text, go to my character palette, just like all the other programs, and choose my font, and make my font size, maybe take my kerning out a little bit, give it some air. Obviously for all headlines, I want to change the kerning to be optical instead of metric. That looks better already. So here you can see my picture box, and as long as that box is large enough, the text will fit in fine. Now, if your text was too long, you're going to get that little red plus, which means there's more text. So it's to be continued. I would then just make the text box larger with my selection tool. And I'm going to flip back to preview mode to see how that looks. So far, so good. I'm going to move that over. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another picture. So I'm going to make another picture box, place in a camera PSD. So this PSD doesn't have a background on it either. So that's working out well. I do my custom size up here at the top, these two little buttons to make it fit. And there we have our camera. Oops. Another thing to pay attention to is we do have the picture box. You can see that with the blue outline. And then there's also the image inside that box so that you can move around. And kind of the box is that blue and the image is this kind of yellowish, reddish color, orange in the middle that you can move around and make larger and whatnot. So the box is just holding it together. Let me just put in, actually I'll come up here and copy and paste one of these watercolors. I have a couple, in my example I did a couple different versions of this, but for time purposes I will use these same two. And you can see here that we'll put that down there. You're going to use your selection tool to move these objects around, just like Illustrator and whatnot. Okay. All right. Looking good. So over here will be my first page, and we're going to repeat a lot of these same patterns and do a little bit more when we come back in a minute.